And that is right in my eyes, so I'm going to cheat ever so slightly to the right. Today we are having a talk by Robyn Rominger. The theme for this year for Women's History Month is sustainable future, so women in sustainability, working in sustainability. And before we get started, we should take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we are gathered for this meeting. For thousands of years, this land has been the home of the Patwin people, including the Yochibihiwinta Nation today. The Patwin people have remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. It has been cherished and protected as elders have instructed the young through generations. We are honored and grateful to be working here today on their traditional lands. So again, thank you for joining us for our second and final Women's History Month talk. And we're going to introduce Robyn. So, Robyn Rominger is an award-winning author and agricultural journalist, as well as a prominent local historian. She grew up in Davis and graduated from Davis Senior High School in 1982. She attended Cal Poly State University, San Luis Obispo, where she studied agricultural science. She also attended California State University, Sacramento, where she earned a bachelor's degree in government journalism. For the past 40 years, although I can't believe it's 40 years, she has written about farming and ranching for various trade publications, including Ag Alert, the weekly newspaper published by the California Farm Bureau Federation. In addition, Robyn is a graduate of the USA Rice Leadership Program and serves on the California Rice Commission. Her extensive public service and civic activities also include serving on the board of directors of Yolo Federal Credit Union and as a member of the Friends of the Yolo County Archives. Robyn is married to Bruce Rominger, a farmer in Winters, and they have 3 children, all of whom are pursuing agricultural careers. So in her presentation this evening, Robyn is going to discuss sustainable agriculture, the farm to fashion movement. The farm to fashion movement is an eco-friendly, transparent approach to clothing production that connects the entire supply chain from the raw materials produced on the farm, such as cotton and wool, through processing to the final garment. It aims to reduce environmental impacts by prioritizing sustainable agricultural practices, local sourcing, and ethical labor. Robyn is going to provide an overview of the farm to fashion movement, and her presentation will conclude with a brief fashion show featuring natural fiber clothing from local retailers from Yolo County. Joining Robyn is Sarah Bartlett, the museum curator for the Yolo County Historical Collection, and she'll be giving us some background in the history of clothing as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Heather, for that nice introduction. And good evening. Today I'm going to talk about the farm to fashion movement. And it centers around wearing natural fiber clothing. So I'm going to explain what this movement is all about and include a bit of history and provide an overview of the latest research on sustainable fashion and conclude with a brief fashion show, highlighting what is available and featuring clothes from local clothing stores. So the farm to fashion movement, it's an extension of sustainable agriculture, which encompasses both food and fiber products. Sustainable agriculture is about using environmentally friendly production practices. For example, using naturally occurring pesticides such as sulfur fungicide, and using fertilizers such as cow manure. Other practices aim to conserve water and prevent soil erosion. And these practices vary from farm to farm. It's what we use on our farm, Rominger Brothers Farms, which is just north of Winters. And our connection to the sustainable fashion industry is that we have sheep on our ranch that produce wool. In fact, we produce, some of our wool goes to Pendleton woolen mills, and here is a Pendleton sweater. Now I'm going to explain the use of natural fiber for producing clothes and textiles. And I'm going to focus on how it has led to the farm to fashion movement, which is growing. Now, the farm to fashion movement, it's an eco-friendly, transparent approach to clothing production that connects the entire supply chain, from the raw materials produced on the farm such as cotton and wool, through processing to the final garment. Now, according to the United Nations, every year we're adding 100 billion pieces of new clothes to support the needs of more than 8 billion people on our planet. The demand for fashion varies based on the economy, climate, and culture. And today, many countries, particularly the developed countries, are importing more than 90% of their clothing needs from the developing world. And that's due to cost competitiveness. Meanwhile, technology has revolutionized the fashion industry by shifting from traditional retail models to direct-to-consumer releases, accelerated by social media. There's been a shift from exclusive seasonal haute couture to year-round online business models. And this has allowed global audiences to experience fashion beyond the strictly seasonal trends and in-person runway shows. The industry now offers seasonless fashion collections year-round. This also includes fast fashion business models. Fast fashion is defined as inexpensive clothing produced rapidly by mass market retailers in response to the latest trends. Some call it use and throw away culture. Fast fashion is often based on synthetic materials. They're not necessarily biodegradable, such as polyester, nylon, and they're also sourced from non-sustainable finite resources, particularly petroleum products, which are used to make plastic. Now, have you heard about the Chilean desert clothes dump? The Atacama Desert in Chile has become a massive visible from space dumping ground for up to 59,000 tons of unsold fast fashion every year, primarily from the US, Europe, and Asia. And these synthetic material garments create severe environmental, health, and fire hazards as they are often burned or left to pollute the desert ecosystem. And because the waste is often burned, it creates toxic fumes, and this can cause respiratory problems for the local residents. Many items in the so-called fast fashion cemetery are made from synthetic materials, and they can take over 200 years to biodegrade. They contribute to microplastic pollution in the desert soil. Billions of microplastics also end up in our ocean. Polyester, acrylic, nylon, and other synthetic fibers, they're believed to make up 60% of clothing we wear and then toss into our washing machines. And why is that a problem? Well, according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, 35% of microplastics that enter the ocean come from synthetic fibers. So every time we wash clothing made of these fibers, they shred, and it contributes to water pollution. Now, there are also concerns about wardrobe, human health. And some health claims pertain to toxic chemical exposure from wearing synthetic fibers. But there's also a school of thought in the wellness space pertaining to the vibrational frequencies of this fabric. And bioenergetic theories suggest that textiles possess measurable vibrational frequencies that interact with the human body's energy fields, influencing our health and well-being. Natural fibers are thought to enhance human energy, while synthetic materials can drain it. Now, consumers are reacting to this by demanding more eco-friendly clothing production practices. And clothing companies are trying to meet this demand, including Levi's, H&M, and United Colors of Benetton. For example, Benetton is using organic cotton, recycled nylon, and certified wool in its products. And shoe companies are also promoting eco-friendly products in response to consumer demand. These are Ariat boots. For example, Ariat company, they state that it offers low-impact footwear using reclaimed algae, responsibly sourced leather, and upcycled rice hulls. And consumers are interested in how all these crops, how we grow them. And note that farmers have different conditions, so you can't use a template on how to grow sustainably and apply it to all farms. It's a process for each farmer to figure out how they can do things sustainably. And this farm-to-fashion movement, it serves as an eco-conscious alternative to conventional fast fashion business models. And now I'm going to talk about the key elements of the farm-to-fashion business model. There's basically 4 elements. First of all, traceability. That means using digital tools to track the journey of the clothing from origin to consumer. And this relates to certification. A clothing company that meets certain criteria, they can get certified as being eco-friendly. And this helps with its marketing of its products if they can get certified. For example, a company can become certified as meeting the Global Organic Textile Standard, which, among other things, guarantees that no child labor was used. Another element is sustainable sourcing. And this is about using renewable resources, such as cotton and wool. It's an approach that focuses on bringing sustainability to the entire value chain. And the farm-to-fashion movement also places value on locally sourced materials, thereby minimizing the carbon footprint. A carbon footprint, it's defined as the total amount of greenhouse gases emitted during a particular process. Greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide can pollute the atmosphere. So it's beneficial to minimize them in various ways. For example, if you buy locally, instead of importing products, then there's less transportation involved, which means less fuel, for example, less jet fuel. You make a smaller carbon footprint and minimize the air pollution. Another element pertains to ethical practices, ensuring fair treatment of workers and animals throughout the production cycle. Now, regarding fair treatment of workers, California leads the way. The Golden State farmers provide higher wages than most other states and countries. And we have also have worker safety protections, such as overtime laws and heat illness prevention regulations. It's the ethical thing to do, as well as a practical thing to do in order to sustain a dependable workforce. And most workers in other countries don't have the same protections. To this end, there is also ongoing research at the UC Davis Western Center for Agricultural Health and Safety to benefit everyone involved in farming and ranching. Now, regarding the ethical treatment of animals, I'll give you an example, the way that sheep are sheared. Now, in modern sheep shearing, it utilizes highly skilled professional shearers, many of whom have been accredited by attending sheep shearing school. I actually attended sheep shearing school. I was writing a story about sheep shearing for Ag Alert, the California Farm Bureau newspaper. And I learned all about it. And modern sheep shearing is actually done on our ranch, on the sheep that graze our hills. It's done by professional shearers from Uruguay. And Uruguay, it's a country with a long history of sheep production. And they use techniques that reduce stress and prevent injury. This includes low stress handling, optimal timing to prevent overheating, such as shearing in the early spring, and using techniques that do not require binding the sheep's legs. You'll see here, they don't bind them. I was watching this guy when I was taking the pictures, and he sheared this particular sheep in 5 minutes. It was there and done, and then there was the next one waiting its turn. It was amazing how fast they are. So that's an overview of the key elements of the farm to fashion business model, and it's an alternative to the fast fashion business model. So natural fiber textiles, they're made from plant-based materials and animal products. The same goes for natural dyes. Most dyes are plant-based, such as blue dye from indigo. And the use of natural dyes, it actually dates back many centuries. The Phoenicians, an ancient civilization that lived in North Africa, they were known for using a lot of purple dye. And they obtained that from a sea snail. Now, plant-based materials, that includes cotton and linen. Other fibers are made from the wood or stems of plants, including bamboo, banana, beech, eucalyptus, hemp, jute, lotus, nettle, okra, pineapple, and sisal. And almost all the parts of the palm tree are used, including the coconuts, as in coconut buttons like the ones on my dress. Right there. Those are coconut buttons. Cotton is the most common source. And there are various types with different properties, such as Pima cotton. That has extra long fibers, which makes it very soft. It's softer than other types, such as Acala. And both Pima and Acala are grown here in California, primarily in the San Joaquin Valley. And later on, when you have a chance after our presentation, there's a table over there with a bunch of different products I brought, both natural and synthetic fibers. And I've got a little bale of cotton there. It's Acala cotton. I got it at a cotton meeting several years ago. And of course, cotton is very versatile and a breathable fabric that doesn't trap heat or moisture next to the body. And here is a lovely cotton blouse, and this is actually from the Winters Collective here in town. And of course, cotton t-shirts are extremely popular, and I bet everyone here owns at least one. Now, colored cotton, that's actually, it's grown on a smaller scale, but it's grown here in Yolo County. Sally Fox, she's a cotton breeder in the Capay Valley, and she's very well known. And she's developed green, brown, and red types of colored cotton. And then there's flax. Flax is grown to produce linen. Flax is a plant that grows in cooler climates, particularly in northwestern Europe, including the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. Linen is a strong, durable, and highly breathable fabric, prized for its moisture-wicking properties. And it's also ideal for warm weather because it has a cool, crisp feel. Though it's prone to wrinkling and it's often more expensive than cotton. And then there's hemp. So hemp is having a resurgence. Its stalk can be used to produce fiber for cloth and other textiles, including items such as upholstery. Hemp, which is a cannabis species like marijuana, was commercially produced in the United States in the 1800s and the early 1900s. until it was banned during the Prohibition era. And then it was federally legalized through the signing of the 2018 Farm Bill. So this legislation removed hemp from the Controlled Substances Act, reclassifying it as an agricultural commodity rather than as a controlled substance. And there's some hemp clothing right there. And this is jute. Jute is a tall, fibrous shrub, and the fiber comes from its stalk. Most is grown in Bangladesh and India. Jute provides the fiber used to make burlap. So it's been used for a long time, because burlap's been around for a long time. And then there's sisal. Sisal fiber, it's a durable and coarse material derived from the agave cisalana plant, commonly used for rugs, carpets, and other home goods, including baskets and cat scratching services. We have a couple of these in my house because we have a few cats. Sisal is a highly degradable plant fiber. And there's also animal-based fibers. Animal-based fibers are made from wool, silk, leather, and fur. Wool comes from many types of animals. Sheep is the most common. Now, regarding the term virgin wool, that means the wool is not recycled. Rather, it's wool taken from a newly sheared fleece. And we actually have a fleece on the table over there. It's 4 fleeces sewn together, but it's into a rug, but that's what a fleece looks like when you remove it from shearing. So, virgin wool, it's prized for premium clothing such as suits and this classic pleated wool skirt. I wanted to show that to you. This is virgin wool. This was produced in Canada. And the quality of wool varies among the different sheep breeds, from very fine to coarse. Merino wool is very fine and used to make sweaters, scarves, and other items. Wool tweed is made from relatively coarse sheep's wool. Tweeds are a staple of traditional British outerwear due to the material being moisture resistant and durable, made to withstand the harsh climates. And I'd like to show you this blazer. This belongs to one of our models, Greta Wyeth. This is a Harris tweed wool blazer made from a blend of wool from 2 types of sheep, the Scottish Blackface and the Cheviot breeds. And wool comes from the cashmere goat. And it just so happens, I have this beautiful cashmere scarf that my friend Jean gave to me as a gift when she went to Nepal. So it's very soft and beautiful, and I love it. So it's just lovely. And almost. Not this. This belongs to Greta, one of our models back there. And, well, I'll get to this. This belongs to my husband. That's a good question. Another type of goat that produces wool is the Angora goat. It produces mohair. And this is alpaca. Now, I brought my husband's alpaca tie. There's actually more than one in the room because we have some on display over there, but I like this one. Bruce went to Peru many years ago, and he got this alpaca tie. I'm going to have to wear that next time we go out.
You even have the image of one.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it has an image of a alpaca on there. And llama. Llama is also another species where we get wool from. And finally, there's the Angora rabbit. The Angora rabbit is bred for its long fibers of its coat that is gathered by shearing or combing. So they call it Angora wool. Now, silk. Silk is obtained from silkworm cocoons. The silk fabric, it was developed many centuries ago in China. And you may have heard about the Silk Road, an ancient network of trade routes extending from China all the way to the Mediterranean. And it was named for the lucrative Chinese silk trade, although the routes also carried a wide variety of goods, including spices, jade, and silver. And I want to show you, this is a silk jacket from China. And so it's just very lovely. I love silk. It's luxurious. Good question. So silk is obtained from the silkworms, the cocoons. And silk fabric, the silkworms, what they do is they eat mulberry leaves. That's a mulberry tree. And those grow around here. I want to show you a few pictures of some really nice silk examples. This is more Chinese silk. This is a silk kimono from Japan. Very traditional, very beautiful. These are silk saris from India, which I absolutely love. I love to see, when I see women wearing saris, oh my gosh, they're just so beautiful. They're so gorgeous. And very traditional in a multitude of colors. Now, Yolo County had a silk industry. Not many people know about this, but it was in the 1860s. I found out about it when I was doing some research at the archives. Now, some farmers established the California Silk Culture Company, which produced silkworms and exported them to Italy. Everything was going well until 1871, when there was a hot spell with temperatures over 100 degrees for 10 days straight. And 2 million silkworms died. That put an end to the company, which was forced to sell the land. And the property is now the site of the Marguerite Montgomery Elementary School in South Davis. Yeah. Now on to leather. Leather is a complex, debated material, often considered a sustainable byproduct of the meat industry. But it can have environmental impact due to various factors, such as synthetic tanning chemicals. So this has led to the development of responsibly sourced leather, a certification that emphasizes eco-friendly tanning, such as using vegetables to tan, vegetable tanning, instead of harsh chemicals. But there's also been the development of leather alternatives. For example, on the left is Opuntia cactus, and they actually are making leather alternative from the cactus, from the leaves. And they're making it also out of cork oak tree bark. That's right here. And they make it from the bark. And these plant-based leathers are also called vegan leather, since they don't contain any animal products. Now, much like leather, fur is also a debated material due to animal welfare concerns. While the use of fur as clothing and adornment has existed since antiquity, In the last few decades, there's been a move in the fashion industry. It's a shift from real fur to fake fur. And in this picture, you can see the Egyptian lady is wearing leopard skin. And on the right, the English queen is wearing a red robe lined with ermine furs. Ermine are weasels, and in the winter they turn white, and then they have the tip of their tail stays black. So that's where that comes from. So there's been the development of fur alternatives, and there's support for wearing faux fur as a cruelty-free, animal-friendly alternative to real fur. And it's supported by organizations like People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, which seeks to reduce animal suffering. Some debate exists, however, because some argue that wearing faux fur keeps the aesthetic of real fur alive and its style, and then others emphasize that many faux furs are synthetic and shed microplastics into the environment. So those are the various types of plant and animal-based materials. Now, as you know, consumers drive demand. And farmers don't create demand. The advertisers and consumers do. So in the 1960s, consumers, they started demanding that the government help protect the environment. And the farm to fashion movement is an extension of that push to protect the environment. And much of that is in response to the widespread use of synthetic materials. Now, synthetic fabrics, man-made materials certainly have benefits. For example, the soles of most shoes are made of synthetic materials that protect our feet. But the farm to fashion movement puts us on a path towards reducing our impacts on the environment to help us sustain the health of the planet. So now I'd like to review some of the synthetic materials. The first synthetic material developed was nylon, and that was developed in 1935 by DuPont. It's a petroleum-based product. The first clothing items were actually nylon stockings. And it just so happens I have the Legs egg. This was very popular back in the 70s when I was a little kid. And here's some, these are actually knee highs. But they were packaged in these eggs, Legs eggs. And I know Legs still makes pantyhose. Just haven't seen the eggs for a while. Maybe they'll come back. And then polyester is also a petroleum-based product. And it's relatively inexpensive to produce. And it's very common. It can actually look like silk. I have this scarf. I thought it was silk. And it came from a museum gift shop. And upon closer inspection, I found out it's polyester. It's still very pretty. Now, modern metallic thread. Modern metallic clothes are often made of aluminum-coated polyester or nylon threads. This is different from the gold thread made with real gold for traditional and high-end clothes. Real gold thread often features a silk or cotton core wrapped in a thin strip of silver gilt, which is silver coated in gold. Or it can just be coated in silver. So metallic fabrics such as lame and brocade are popular for evening wear, embroidery, and decorative accents. And when you get a chance at the end, over there on the table, kind of on the left side, there are 3 materials there that are silk with real gold, courtesy of Greta Wyeth, whose grandfather brought them back from China, I believe. Japan. Now, acrylic. Acrylic is used for clothing such as sweaters. And then there's rayon. So rayon is a semi-synthetic fiber. It's derived from wood pulp, including bamboo, beech, birch, eucalyptus, oak, and spruce wood pulp. It's considered a semi-synthetic fiber because chemicals are used to break down the wood pulp. So rayon is frequently used as a low-cost, breathable alternative to silk, cotton, or linen. And there are different types of rayon: viscose, modal, and lyocell. And I want to show you. This is actually a rayon scarf, and it's very soft. And I do like to wear this in the wintertime. And it's made of rayon, and it says dry clean. So a lot of rayon, you need to either dry clean it or hand wash it, otherwise it could shrink. So it's always good to look at the labels of your clothing on how to take care of it to extend the life of your clothes. So lyocell, which is a rayon, it's considered a more environmentally friendly type of rayon. It's produced in a closed loop process that recycles nearly all the chemicals in water. Its brand name is Tencel. And then there's bamboo. Bamboo is one of the fibers used to produce rayon. And here's a bamboo shirt. Bamboo is actually pretty popular for clothing now. And in fact, over there on that table, you'll see a pink baby blanket, pink and blue baby blanket that's made out of bamboo. It was for my daughter Rachel, who's now 18 years old. Oops. Sorry. There we go. Okay. Another synthetic is pleather. Pleather, plastic leather. And it's made from polyurethane. Polyurethane, a plastic polymer coating applied to a fabric backing to mimic the look and feel of real leather. Polyurethane is also used to make spandex and elastane. These are durable elastic fibers, and elastane and spandex are actually the same thing. The only difference is the terminology. Here in the US, we call it spandex, while elastane is the term used everywhere else in the world. And both offer exceptional stretch and recovery. It means they stretch back. And they're commonly used in exercise clothes and other form-fitting material. And Lycra is a brand name. And eco-conscious people are also supportive of wearing secondhand clothes. Thrifting is an effort to reduce, recycle, and reuse. And some people look specifically for unique vintage clothes. I know I like to look for vintage clothes. Now, in addition to natural fiber textiles, there's also natural beauty products. And many of the beauty products are made out of natural sources grown on the farm. Here's some lavender. Now, there are lavender farms in Yolo County, such as Damn Good Lavender Farm and Apiary, based in Woodland. DAM is the acronym for the owners' names: Dan, Alex, Michelle, and Nicole. And on the left is Michelle and Dan. And their company produces body oils, body sprays, soaps, and other natural beauty products based on the lavender, as well as honey. And in the spirit of full disclosure, the owners of the company, they're in the audience today. That would be Alex Bellini. He is, oh, he's outside with the kids. Well, he's married to Catherine Rominger. Yes, he's married to Catherine Rominger, and they have 3 children they're all going to be in today's fashion show. And other natural beauty products are made from plant materials such as olive oil, grapeseed oil, and also some animal-based ingredients such as felted soap. This is soap that's wrapped in felt from sheep's wool. And I actually bought this on Main Street here in Winters at the Fine Eye Gallery. So consumers can help support the farm to fashion movement by buying eco-friendly products. And for those of you who want to buy yarn, an example is Valley Oak Wool and Fiber Mill in Woodland. They sell yarn, wool yarn, and Golden State Linen in Chico sells linen yarn and teaches classes in how to weave. There's also a nonprofit organization called Fiber Shed, and they offer a holiday shopping guide that features climate beneficial certified products from cotton yarn to wool sweaters. Now it's time to look back on history. Prior to the development of nylon in 1935, all clothes were natural fiber. And I visited the Yolo County Archives and found some images of people wearing such clothes in the 1800s and early 1900s. So let's take a look. These are very stylish people. We're starting with Elba Elberfeld in 1887. Notice her dress with its high neckline. It was very Victorian. It was during that era. And this is Mrs. J.E. Dundee from the 1890s with her wedding dress. This is Mrs. N.E. Garland in the early 1900s, wearing a garland of flowers around her neck and flowers in her hair. I think that might have been her thing. And this is George Heck. He ran for many different public offices. He was from a farmer in Woodland. This is him in 1920. And you can see his outfit there, along with his dog. It's a pretty stylish guy. And here he is again. Heck was California's first director of agriculture. And he owned the Yolanda Mansion, which is south of Woodland at the corner of Road 99 and 25A. And one of the guests here today, my friend Jean, she used to live in that mansion, and it's owned by her extended family. It's beautiful. So now I would like to introduce you to Sarah Bartlett. Sarah is the museum curator of the Yolo County Historical Collection, and she's going to discuss the clothing collection. So Sarah?
Hello. So while Robyn was doing the research for this presentation, she came and did a research appointment at the historical collection where we have the county's 3D collection. And we were talking about some of the clothing items, and I pulled a lot of things that she could talk about, and she said, well, why don't you just come and talk about some of the historical clothing? And I said, sure. So I brought some examples of women's fashion from the 19th century. And I'm going to sort of briefly talk about some of the fabrics here, some of the clothing, and also the way that clothing was used in the 19th century in terms of women's bodies specifically. So I have a few examples, and I'm going to start off in the 1860s with these examples from the historical collection. So I'm actually going to just pass those around. Okay. These are from Goody's Lady Book, which was a publication that was famous for its color prints that you could get. So you would have these color fashion prints that you could browse and see what the latest fashions were. And these two are from the 1860s. So you can sort of explore the shape of the clothing there. Increasingly, as the 19th century went on, the goal of women's fashion more and more became sort of an augmentation of the female form. So in the 1860s, you can see in those images, you have the giant hoop skirts and the sort of tiny waists and then the big shoulders. And as time went on, that form sort of shifted and changed based on what the fashions were. So I'll quickly go through later 19th century changes in corsets and bustles, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the materials that were used to make those. So I'll start over here with our corset. So during the Industrial Revolution, a new material came to be used in women's clothing. So previously, corsets were made with whaleboning in the corsets to give them their shape and their structure. After 1840, with the Industrial Revolution, they started to use steel, which meant that corsets could be tighter, bodies could be shaped more effectively, and you could start to get a more augmented shape of the female body because the steel was a lot more rigid. You also have the inclusion of a double busk. So the busk is this part of the corset here. So in earlier versions of corsets, you have an interior busk. So you have a piece of either whalebone or something rigid, sometimes even wood inside here to give it shape in the front. This double busk here opens up so you can close it from the front instead of just from the back. So this meant that women could have corsets like this and fit into the fashions of the time without the assistance of a lady's maid. So it made the corset more accessible to people. But also when you have steel in corsets, you end up having a lot tighter corsets, and you end up having situations where women's organs started to be rearranged due to prolonged corset wearing. I'm going to move on so I don't take up too much of your time to talk about bustles and women's skirts here. So there was actually a period of women's fashion called the bustle era. So beginning in 1869 to 1889 was the first bustle era. So it was characterized by poofs and ruffles and round skirts. So this round hoop skirt here would have been used in that first bustle period. It's round, it's not super augmented. It is a bigger skirt, but it's also still pretty modest in its shape. Bustles did appear in 1864, but they weren't sort of the norm, the sort of big bustles that added a lot of material to the back of the body weren't sort of the norm in fashion magazines until a little bit later. So it was a little bit calm at the beginning of the 1860s. Then in 1876, we have the natural form period. That period was really something where you have, this corset here is from the late 1860s. So you have a little bit more of augmentation in women's bodies, but you have, I'm trying to see if there's a visual example of this here, softer bustles and something like this here, which could have been added to the back of a lady's skirt to give her a little bit of shape at the back, but not too much. So this could be stuck onto the back of her waist, and then she would have a little bit of shape without having to add too much material to her dress. Then we have the second bustle era, which is the one that you're probably thinking of when you think of bustles, which is this very intense sort of bustle that's both a cage and a bustle on the back of the dress. And then you have a lot of material that's being added to the back of dresses to add this big shape in the back. So you combine that with a corset that is pulling all your organs in, and suddenly you don't look like a human being anymore. So this dress is from the 1880s. So it would have been a part of that second bustle era. So I brought this one. It's a little bit weird, partially because I don't have any mannequins that are small enough to fit these clothes, because women were smaller and the corsets were making their bodies very small. And so I brought this one because I think it's a really interesting example of how dresses were shifted to accommodate the bustle. So at the back of this dress, it had this extra piece of fabric so that you could accommodate the fact that there was a lot of stuff going on in the back. And then it had these sort of hidden pieces of embroidery that would sort of be a part of enhancing that bustle at the back of the dress. Another reason why we sort of know that this is from the 1880s is because of the heavy use of the metal buttons in this guy that are all pretty uniformly made, which hints at them being mass produced. So we have a lot of different examples of sort of the ways that clothing shifted based on the materials that were available. So as we had steel being introduced, we had more rigid corsets. We also then could have more shape in the skirts because steel was used in the hoop skirts. You also have those materials being used in the bustles and in the buttons here. Then you also see it in some of the historical examples in the magazines we have in the collection. So here you can see that 1880 bustle on her body there. And then you can see to the sort of extreme augmentation of the form that's being sort of glorified in the magazine examples as well. And then you can see that too here where her waist is probably about 4 inches in this image. And then as we get into the 20th century, you can see that there's a shift away from those sort of really extreme forms. Here, her body is almost obscured by the sheer amount of fabric that's on her. And you can see a lot more loose materials being used. And then you can also see some examples of natural fibers with her fur coat here. And again, it's a lot more, this coat is very big. She's sort of shapeless in this image as well. And then we have some examples here of what looks like wool for children's clothing. And again, very loose fitting on those. As we move into the 20th century and we have a lot less of those rigid designs, we see a lot more loose clothing. So there's almost no shape in that clothing. I see it as a reaction to them finally being able to exist in the public sphere. As we sort of, at the same time that women's clothing is getting a lot more shapeless, you have a lot more participation. You have a lot more women joining the workforce. You have a lot more women participating in the public sphere. And it sort of depends on who you talk to. It's sort of a chicken or the egg scenario. Whether it was getting into the workforce, that meant that clothing had to be sufficient to do that, or if it was sort of the opposite, where women had looser clothing and then they could then have the energy and the space to participate in the public sphere. So you can sort of see how clothing affects a lot of different things throughout history.
Yeah.
I will turn it back over to Robyn.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much. That was fascinating. Well, it's time to look to the future. Now we're going to take a look at something that is relatively new to our area. At UC Davis, they have the brand new Maria Minetti Schrem Institute of Sustainable Design, Fashion, and Textiles. And it's located there on campus, and it's part of the Department of Design. It's affiliated with that. And the Institute, it actually facilitates research and design into sustainable fashion and advances sustainable practices in design and fashion. Now here's a picture of Maria Minetti Schrem, and she is the benefactor, the one who she donated a lot of money. And she's there on the left with an art student, a design student there on campus. And then to the right, she's giving a speech at the grand opening, which is in November. It's relatively new. And some of the projects that have been going on there at the Institute, they reflect what the students are interested in. And so there was a student who designed experiments using agave fiber for sustainable textile production. And I'm assuming that that is the agave siciliana, the sisal that we talked about earlier. Cat scratching posts. And UC Davis graduate Damian Mitchell, he's there on the right, he created a pair of sustainable sneakers that reduce industry waste, fashion industry waste. And then Alejandra Ruiz, another UCD graduate, she developed a way to break down textile waste using mycelium. It's root-like structures of fungi. Mycotextile Futures is the name of the operation. They turn discarded clothing into architectural materials like mycelium brick. And these materials can be reused several times. Like the brick, you use it in architectural purposes and it breaks down the synthetic textile fibers, returning them to the soil. And then this is one of many UCD design collections. This is the Red Dress design collection. And finally, the UC Davis design students, every year they produce a fashion show at Picnic Day. So this year, Picnic Day is on Saturday, April 18th. So if you get a chance to go to campus for Picnic Day, you can go watch their fashion shows. So now it's time for our fashion show. It features natural fiber clothing, and some of it's sold at 2 local clothing stores. One is the Winters Collective here in town, it's on Main Street, and the other is The Haven, a boutique located in Woodland, also on Main Street. So it's time to have our models come on out. So first we're going to start with John. So John is wearing a blue plaid cotton shirt from The Haven, along with cotton blue jeans and leather cowboy boots. So, well done, John. Thank you. And next we have Rachel. Rachel is wearing a black and white striped cotton sleeveless cowl neck top and gold bracelet from the Winters Collective, and a cotton denim mini skirt and black leather cowboy boots. Rachel. And next we have Paige. Paige is wearing a brown cotton top and a long cotton denim skirt. Very lovely. Nice. And next is Justin. Justin is wearing a blue plaid Pendleton wool board shirt from The Haven, cotton blue jeans, leather boots, and a black felt cowboy hat. Looking good. And next we have Greta. Greta is wearing an ivory and black linen cotton blend dress and shoes made of leather and cork, Italian leather, and jewelry, and this is all from The Haven. And next is Violet. Violet is wearing a light blue cotton tank top from the Winters Collective and a cotton denim mini skirt. Looking good. And Aiden, her twin brother, is wearing a navy blue cotton shirt from The Haven and cotton jeans and leather boots. Looking great. And Theo, who is our exchange student from Germany this year in Winters, he's wearing a rust and beige cotton shirt from The Haven and blue cotton pants. And he's looking very good as a model here in the U.S. Something to write home about. And lastly, I am wearing a linen rayon blend dress and sweater from the Haven. And I'm wearing a stone beaded necklace. So this is my outfit. So, in conclusion, the Farm to Fashion movement highlights sustainable and eco-friendly clothing, produced from renewable resources, ideally created from locally sourced materials, and produced in such a way that provides ethical treatment of workers and animals. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the Farm to Fashion movement, and I want to thank all of you for attending.